Welcome to the IT Naturally podcast. In each episode, we'll be talking to IT leaders and experts who are using technology to create positive change and how IT can be a force for good. My guest today is Will Garside. He's a seasoned broadcaster, he's a published author, he's a journalist, and he's got more than 3 decades of experience covering the technology sector. He's the Editorial Director at IT Europa, and he reports on the trends shaping MSPs, vendors, and the wider tech ecosystem, including cybersecurity, AI, sustainability, and digital transformation. And I think you're all going to really enjoy listening to Will. So, Will, you've spent decades reporting on the IT world. How do you think that's shaped you personally and professionally?
Oh, that is a very good question. I think I've become a bit more tolerant, hopefully. Some of the ideas that I might have had when I was in my 20s, which were very black and white, I think I've become a little bit more grey in my thinking. I don't mean that the brain cells are dying, but more along the lines of it's not always what it appears to be at the first glance. IT kind of teaches you that those who used to be the most powerful, when I came into the industry, IBM was the absolute king of technology and unassailable. Google didn't exist, and Microsoft was an up and comer. So you kind of realize that the tides will come in and the tides will go out, and it will change our industry. And conversely, you have to think a bit more. I don't know. You can't just treat everything as if it's a given.
Yes, and I think we probably started at similar times, Will, and we probably heard lots of things being hyped up that we haven't even got a clue what they are today. They came and they went so quickly.
Absolutely.
So from the outside, from your role looking in, what have you seen changing about MSPs and the IT channel over the last few years?
I mean, we've been saying to the MSP community for the last 3 decades, well, we've been saying to the IT community, you must become service providers. You must move away from having these big lumpy projects every 5 to 7 years and switch towards recurring revenue. And it's been a mantra because, yes, there's a lot of sense to that. IT is not a install the network and that's it, install the application and that's it. IT is continually changing. So MSPs have to continually change. I think the biggest change is that even though we still know that managed services is the way to go, there's still a lot of MSPs out there that are not really MSPs. They are VARs who do some service revenue. I think we did a panel recently at one of our events where an M&A expert said that you need to be over sort of 50 to 60% to be even classed as an MSP, in their view, from an acquisition standpoint. And there are still a lot of companies out there, of the 18,000 or so that are in the UK, that are not really MSPs. It's not a criticism. It's just a fact.
I must admit, a couple of times I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to add a bit to become an MSP on top of what I do. And I cringe because I take so much pride in what we do. And I think what we do is so important, and getting it right is so important. And just doing a bit of it on top isn't going to cut it. It isn't going to give your customers a great service.
Yeah, but also the customers, the MSP has risen because the customer expectation has changed. So to be very honest, a lot of my friends work in managed services. I was the lucky one. I managed to go and do the glamorous job of a journalist. Whereas I've got friends who work for very large vendors, mid-size MSPs, smaller MSPs, and it's not all sunshine and roses, because it's quite a difficult task. And unlike doing the big project every few years for the client, now it's constant and you have to change. Skills like customer service, engagement, surveys, where you're actually consulting around a problem as opposed to just putting the tech in and walking away. It's not necessarily an easy transition for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And So you've been at IT Europa a while. Have you
Mm.
seen new technology genuinely open new opportunities for people and businesses? Have you got any stories?
Yes. Oh my word. I mean, I'll tell you my favourite story of a partner that I met. So we were doing an event in Manchester a few years back, and I'm a heavy smoker. I apologise, and I'm standing outside having a smoke, and there's a chap next to me. We get into conversation, and he was a leader at a very very large print services company. They were a
Okay.
Xerox or Lexmark or HP triple gold platinum partner, whatever the name
Yeah.
was. And I said to him, "Oh, so why are you here?" He goes, "Oh, well, there's not that much money in managed print. It's kind of low margin, but we have some
Okay.
absolutely great customers." And he reeled off a few customer names for me. And they were a fantastic example of what a managed print services company should be. Well-trained engineers, good certifications. He wanted to transition into IT, and he
Okay.
wasn't going to do it himself. So he was trying to find a company to partner with. So he was at an event to find another partner and
Wow.
maybe talk to a few vendors as well. But that was his goal. And he did. I'm not going to name any names, but they did. Well, they did, and then they were acquired. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. But that example of change and evolution kind of makes sense. There
Yeah.
are others. I know of an MSP that they did the radical step of forcing all of their customers to take an absolute bare minimum of security. It was a few years back. They said to their
Yeah.
customers, if you don't take these three things,
Yeah.
it was always on VPN, multi-factor, and something else. It might have been privileged access. We're not going to work with you
Yeah.
because you're just going to get breached and then you're going to blame us. And all of their customers, bar one or two, signed up, just took the
Yeah.
minimum security, signed the sort of waiver. And the guy I spoke to said, we were so glad when that one customer left because they were an absolute pain in the ass. And but I think it's
Yeah.
those moments when people have these realizations that they can do better, and then
Yeah.
they do better, and it
Yeah.
works out quite nicely.
Yeah. We have minimum security standards, and they're really key to
Yeah.
us, because if somebody doesn't care about their security and they won't look after it, how can we offer them a good service? We're just not aligned as companies. If
And
yeah.
you know there
So
are customers that are potentially going to be costing you money for you to work with them. And
yes, exactly.
sometimes owner operators say to themselves, well, I've known them for so long, and we've been with us since the beginning. It's like, yeah, but if they're hurting themselves, you're not there to enable them to hurt
Oh yeah.
themselves.
I know, it's frustrating, and a few times I've sort of spoken to businesses. I spoke to a law firm recently, and they've got 200 lawyers. They're a decent sized company, and they've got sort of four people in the corner that do their IT, and they don't have any outside services. And I was saying, so when you get that screen up that says ransomware, who are you going to call? Because you're four people who are probably really lovely people, probably very good
Mm,
in the old school way of doing things. They're not going to be able to sort that out. What's gonna happen? And you have to have people full time working on security to keep up with the trends, to keep up with what's changing.
yeah.
It's not you read a magazine once a month to find out what's happening. It's changed.
And
It's changed so
statistically,
much.
it's going to be when they get attacked. I mean, it's not, and
Massively. I know.
I'm not, I have a really unpopular view, Julie, which is going to sound very, very, not controversial, but unpopular. Cybersecurity has got better. I've covered
Yes.
cybersecurity for 3 decades. It
Yeah.
has got infinitely better than it was in the let's put some McAfee and semantic antivirus on there and cross
We'll
our
be
fingers
fine.
and pray.
Yeah.
Um, it's got infinitely better. The problem is that the attacks now are
So much
state
better.
level, industrialized, where there are almost companies with HR and payroll
Yes.
and
Yeah.
line managers who
Massive.
all they do 24/7 is crime. It's not even the
Yeah.
glamorous world of the hooded hacker or the script
Yeah.
kiddies. It's just crime
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
those same people that were selling dodgy timeshares in the 80s are now doing cybercrime in the 2020s. And
Exactly.
eventually, everyone gets breached.
Yes, and I think yes, exactly. And it's not your fault if you get breached, but you should have done
No,
things to minimise the risk. You know,
no,
I don't like the blame when something goes wrong and people blame the
same.
company. They are a victim of crime, but we need to do better to make it harder for the criminals.
Completely agree.
So you've talked about a bad one. My next question, you answered half of it. Um, so what are the broader sort of changes in society that you've seen that tech has driven? So good or bad? I think you've done a bad one. So what good things have come out of tech?
There are lots of very positive things. I guess everybody at this point in any podcast has to mention AI. I'm not
Yeah,
going to.
good.
It's automation, and it's very clever automation, but it's automation.
Mm.
I think there's been a level of freedom that technology has given to human beings, which
Yeah.
I'm in awe of. I've worked from home for 23, 24, no, more than that. Oh God, 24 years. As a man, I got to see my son go to school every day and pick him up from school. I got to be involved in things around my family that I couldn't have done. Um, that's only possible because I have technology that allows me to talk, communicate, work remotely. And if I was thankful for one thing, and it sounds, I'm sorry to be sexist, I don't mean to be sexist, but men have probably benefited as much as women from the evolution of technology, because it's
Massive.
helpfully going to change some of the gender roles that have been
Yeah.
ingrained in us. Because now both parents can go. I have a really good couple that I know, James and Segalin. She's French, he's English. They just had a child. They both work in technology PR, and they're both working and caring for their beautiful child on alternate days for very large companies. And both their companies are progressive enough to recognize that they have value, but they also have lives outside of their work. Without internet technology, communication technology,
Mm.
portability of tech, they couldn't do it. One of them would have to sacrifice their career or their life to look after their lovely child. So if technology's done anything for society, it's lifted up out of these old-fashioned stereotypes.
No, brilliant. And so this week we've been incredibly lucky. We've just had our third grandchild, and my daughter it's gorgeous. And my daughter's here. She lives in London. And my other daughter lives in Dubai, but she's seen her nephew many times. Her little boy has been touching pictures of the baby, stuff that, if somebody lived abroad years ago, you just wouldn't see the family. You wouldn't be as involved.
Yeah.
It's been, there's a lot we can thank tech for, a lot that we can't,
Yeah.
but a lot that we can
Yeah.
thank tech for.
You can't have sweet without sour.
Exactly. So, one that's a big one for us at IT Naturally, sustainability. It's becoming a bigger
Mm.
topic in the MSP world. And indeed, actually, Emma, who's recording this for us, has formed a group of B Corp MSPs, and we all work together and work out what we can do to get things to be better. But what trends are you seeing around greener IT and responsible tech?
Okay, so as a sidebar, you're in our last report. We do 4 reports a year. One of them was on sustainability, and you
Mm.
were one of 20 companies that we identified. Now, I didn't do the report, my colleague Greg did. Do you know how hard it was to find 20 companies within the IT MSP community? Not vendors and not greenwashing large corporations. I meant actual MSPs that were not just saying the words, but
Yeah,
actively
yeah, working
putting
it.
their hands in their pocket and for it to cost them something. Now,
Yeah,
when Greg was doing that search, he found lots of companies that had really lovely websites, but they weren't B Corp. Or they had lovely mission statements, but they weren't doing anything around energy consumption so I think one of the trends is that the era of having the pretty website and actually doing something has maybe shifted slightly, because now it's very easy for you to be found out if you're not,
Yeah.
if it's just all lip service. But I think on the flip side of that, we did a survey at one of our events. It might have been Comms Vision, which talked about sustainability, and it was tied into diversity and inclusion, which I think was a strange
Yes.
kind of mix.
They're not
And
the same.
you get the sense that a lot of people they still don't really understand how profound a change our planet is going through.
Mm.
Yes, they'll put their recycling into different colored bins,
Yeah.
but if you say to them, well, okay, where's the energy for your data center coming from?
Yeah.
I still think there's a bit of a disconnect. The younger generation get it more.
Yeah.
And I have a 20-year-old son who I love immensely, who wants to work for an organization that is sustainable.
Mm.
He wants to either create a sustainable brand or work in sustainable fashion. And if you ask him why, he says, well, it's the right thing to do, isn't it? But he feels it. He doesn't articulate it maybe in the most elegant way, but he feels it. And I'm hoping that technology will catch up with the sentiment of a generation, because I don't know if we're the target demographic for this, but
No,
the
no, no, we're not.
20-year-olds really are.
But I think
Really are.
we have a responsibility to support their goals and to go in that
Yeah.
direction. It's
Yeah.
you're right. We're coming to the further end of our careers, but if we don't put in things that make it possible for them, that doesn't feel right.
Completely agree.
But we've certainly found for things like recruitment and retention, being a B Corp, people just love working for a B Corp, and you know what it means. So it's really helpful.
But does it work? I mean, I question you, Julie. You guys have. We met again quite a while back, and you guys
Mm.
will always practice what you preach. I don't just
Yeah,
mean B Corp, but also some of your recruitment
yeah,
policies. How
yeah,
you have a very diverse organization.
yeah.
Does that translate to customer success? Because sometimes you see companies that are actually very ethical, but they're not getting the huge contracts and they're not winning the big deals.
So it's worked fine, absolutely fine for us. So we've just signed another big contract for a long time. Because the service that we get from people, if people find it harder to find a role, then when they do find a role and they're really valued and respected, I guess they've got loyalty to that company and they
Yeah.
go the extra mile.
Yeah.
So, we I think it's paid back. Is it paid back in numbers? I think it's in loyalty and flexibility from your staff.
Yeah.
But we don't do it for payback, do we? None of us do it for payback. We do it because it's the right thing to
Yeah.
do. And yeah, but we went to a CAMS B2B, a Cambridgeshire business event this week, and it was wonderful that the previous CEO of the Williams F1 team was there, and somebody was saying, what's the one thing in business that drives you and drove your team and drove your father's team? And it's treat everybody as equals, treat everybody with respect. She said if the cleaner in the factory hadn't cleaned the floor properly and a bit of dirt had got into the car, then the car wouldn't win the race. So that cleaner is as important as the driver. And that's an ethos that we feel really, really strongly. And it's nuts not to think it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I agree. And when you meet those types of champions, I don't know if you met the chaps from Zen Internet. I mean, I use them as an exemplar of practicing what you preach.
Mm.
Great business, not the biggest, not the smallest, but they've grown consistently. If you talk to those founders, they breathe it. That ethos which you described, they absolutely live it. And when you look at their retention of their staff, it's near 100%.
Yeah.
No business can be 100%, but it's
No.
as close to damn as you
Yeah.
can.
Yes, it's lovely because we formed with 28 employees, vast majority of them from Thomas Cook, and vast majority of those are still working with us 6 years later, and
That's
it's
great.
brilliant.
That's great.
I'm going to go on to some of our fun questions now, Will. So what's the weirdest or funniest or most unexpected moment that's happened to you in your career?
Weirdest. There have been a few. Oh
Mm.
God, some of them I really
Tweet that,
cannot tell on a
that
podcast.
can be yeah, that can be published. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Oh right. So I was very, very fortunate to go through the dot-com boom as a young reporter, which meant I get to fly everywhere. And there were a couple of just surreal press trips where you almost couldn't make them up. So there was a company called something like ADC, or it had a three-letter acronym, and they sold big old network router type devices. And they decided to have a press trip for mostly UK press to Lake Como in Italy. So product announcements, roadmap, the usual stuff. And I was like 20 something. So we get into Lake Como, and we realize that of the 3 days there, there's only half a day of briefings. And the other 2.5 days are in Lake Como with the likes of sort of Mike McGee and that era of journalist. And every night they'd give us a bottle of grappa, which they'd leave in our room. And we just spent 2.5 days getting absolutely ruined while messing around on boats. And I thought, is this what the working world of a journalist is like? I mean, that was one, but there were also sort of like just moments when I got to interview some people that I had almost like a man crush on. I met John Thompson again. He was the former CEO of Symantec. He was the former CEO of IBM Americas, and he's now the current chairman of Microsoft. Now, I met him, and he's also black, which makes the story a bit more interesting. And there's
Yeah.
very few black executives in the IT industry.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
met him at CeBIT, and I doorstepped him to get a few questions when he just had joined at I swerved around the PR phalanx and managed to ask him a couple of questions at this German trade show, CeBIT, which you've now
Wow.
gone. And then 20 something years later, I was invited to a luncheon for a vendor that was doing a new startup, and he was a guest because he was an investor as well. I sat next to him 20 years later, and you know those people that are just a little bit magical.
Yeah.
He'd run IBM Americas, handpicked by Bill Gates to be Microsoft chairman. And I said to him, "Oh, you might not remember me, but I interviewed you many years ago." He goes, "Yeah, you were at some German trade show, and you sort of ducked my handlers to ask me some couple of questions." I thought, "Oh my God, this is just too
Wow.
weird." I spent an
Wow.
hour over lunch just talking to him about life, the universe, and everything, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. He had
How
such an
incredible.
understanding of of not just the IT industry, but also being of color in an industry where you generally stand out in a room. And that was,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, one of my best moments.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds so meaningful, really exciting. I'm
Yeah.
going to have you
Yeah.
a couple of really quick fire questions. You're not
Okay.
allowed to think about the answers. There's only three, so you're okay. You're
Yeah.
okay. So what piece of tech couldn't you live without?
My chair. I have an Aaron Miller chair. It's beautiful. I don't get much exercise, so I sit down a lot, and I have a very nice 1,000 quid new chair, and I'm never going to get rid of it. And if you try and take it away from me, there will be a fight.
I won't try. I won't try.
Don't try.
So we've talked a bit about this, but what's the biggest myth about sustainable IT?
That it's zero cost.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
is a cost. I think
Yeah.
anyone who says to you that being sustainable means that, oh, it's cost neutral, and if someone tells the lie that, oh, there may be a return on investment, and that return on investment may be, the fate of our children and our planet, but the cost wise, there
Yeah.
tends to be a cost associated with it, and anyone who says that there isn't, I'm always a bit skeptical of.
Yeah, I tend. Yes, yes. You need to put your money where your mouth is as well. You need to
You do.
invest in these
Yeah.
things, get it right. And if you've got one word, this will be a hard one, one word to describe the IT channel today.
Ooh. Shifting.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's. I think AI is going to cause a shift. I think culture is going to cause a shift. I think, unfortunately, in the UK, Brexit has caused a shift,
it
and we're going
has.
to
Yeah,
see that
yeah,
move further.
yeah,
And yeah, maybe shifting, or maybe uh, uncertain, because I don't know if the 18,000 companies that are currently listed by the government as MSPs are all in equal shape to carry on moving forward. Yeah, there's 5.5 million businesses, and yeah, there's
yeah.
5.5 million of them that are small, tiny organizations. But I do worry that we're not gonna be able to carry on in the same format. So I think MSPs need to think a bit more about the future, and what that looks like in terms of how many staff they have, where they are, and the types of projects and services that they deliver.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. And
Same.
you've got so much perspective on the industry. It's been really, really helpful to hear your view on everything. So if anybody wants to keep up with Will's work and follow IT Europa on LinkedIn, we're going to pop those links into the show notes. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back soon with more conversations about secure, scalable, sustainable IT and the fascinating people who make it happen. See you next time.